guys, welcome back to my channel. I'm gonna do a favorite books of all time video. I've always wanted to do a video like this, talking about my favorite books. I like to read, obviously, and I have quite a few favorite books, and you can't judge me because some of these books are like cringy and old, but they'll always be my favorites because some of them are what got me into reading, and it is what it is, folks. So I'm gonna start with the cringiest one first. The Twilight series. I'm not gonna pull out all of these books, but this book, it's been loved. It's even turning a little bit yellow. I've had this, I've had Twilight in my life since a long time. When I read these books, I was growing up, and the love story of Bella and Edward, and you know, but this is the book that got me into reading the way I do. I'll never forget how I first felt reading Twilight, and as cringy as it is, I know some people agree with me that this is what got them into reading, and growing up, this just shaped my life. As like, it's not even like very like, it's not like a crazy like, oh, like it's such a good book. It's just the story, and then the movies came out. I own all the movies. I still like them. It's my guilty pleasure. It's like, you know what? I don't care. I still love Twilight forever. Edward Cullen. The next book I have is The Hunger Games. This is another one of those, oh, you know, I mean, I didn't see the last couple movies. I actually loved the books. The books, I read all of them in like a week when I was younger, and I remember feeling the same way about The Hunger Games by Suzanne Collins as I did about Twilight by Stephanie Meyer. I had to know the authors there because I forgot to mention them. But these two books, Twilight and Hunger Games, were before I watched BookTube, before I even read the way I do. I just, for some reason, these books captivated me. And if you don't know what The Hunger Games is about, it's a dystopian novel about the country makes all these kids battle in this arena to the death, and the winner is like famous or whatever, but it's one of those, I liked dystopian growing up. And Twilight and Hunger Games, these two, they shaped me into who I am today. Like, I love reading because of them. I owe it to Stephanie Meyer and Suzanne Collins. Another good series by Suzanne Collins is actually for younger kids, I believe. It's Gregor the Overlander. Those books actually also in my younger years, I don't own any of them because back then I used to check books out of the library a lot. But Gregor the Overlanders, there's a whole bunch of them. I don't know what they're all called, but you can look that up. I would still read it today. It's basically about this boy that he's living, I'm pretty sure his family's poor, and he stumbles into this laundry chute. I don't remember. I think it's a laundry chute or like an air vent, and he falls down and into this like hole, and it ends up being like this entire world of a different type, like race of people. It's crazy, and like they have these giant roaches that talk down there, and like giant rats, and it was one of those series, like that is the series that got me into reading. Like Twilight and Hunger Games, yes, but Gregor the Overlander, I remember my 3rd grade teacher read the first book to us in class, and then I was hooked. I read the first one again by myself, and then I read the entire series. I remember sitting in the back of the car on the way to the mall with my parents, and I used to read those books when we went on our family trips, but that's a really good series. I definitely recommend it. My next favorite book is Outlander by Diana Gabaldon, and Dragonfly and Amber by Diana Gabaldon. I actually have all of these books, and I've read up to Echo and the Bone. I think that is the 3rd to the last book in the series as of right now. She's not done writing yet. I actually got into Outlander because of Sasha Alsberg from Book Utopia. She is obsessed with Outlander, and I was like, oh, like that sounds really good. I'm gonna try reading it. And I remember I ordered this edition. I thought it was really pretty. I have the other edition too, but I like these. They're like the pillowy, like pretty. I love them. But I read the first book and I got in a couple chapters and I was like hooked. Like there was no way I wasn't reading this entire series in a week. I stopped myself, of course. I didn't read the whole series. I'm waiting till she releases a few more books so that I'm not like left with nothing, and I hate that. I hate reading and like waiting for the author to release it because I need to know what happens. But Outlander is basically about a woman that travels back in time. She's from 1940s, World War II era. And she falls back in time and ends up in this, I'm pretty sure, the 18th century Scotland during the rebellions. And she meets this man, and the rest is history. You guys have to read this book if you like. I wouldn't call it romance. It's historical fiction. I know that Diana does not like to call this book a romance. I love the romance part of the book. Jamie and Claire and Frank and everybody, like, this book is my baby and my all-time favorite series. But if you like a love story with a little bit of historical fiction and like some action, like this is a book for you. And I actually read this book before the TV series came out, so I was saved in that way of it not ruining for me. So before I watched the TV series, I already had the characters all made up in my head. But I'm rambling a little bit because I love this book, as you can't tell. But the TV series is really good. I think they're making the 4th season right now. And I love every book in this series. The only reason I brought these two out was because I like the editions. But 1, 2, and 3, it's Outlander, Dragonfly and Amber, and Voyager are my top 3 out of the series I love, and the rest are really good as well, but those are my 3 favorite books out of the whole series. But definitely give these books a try. I recommend them. The next book in my favorite books is The Physician by Noah Gordon. I don't usually read books like this. I mean, I love historical fiction. This is what this is. It's historical fiction. I like that kind of stuff. But when I look at this book, I wouldn't say I judge a book by its cover, like, but in terms of books, I do judge a book by its cover. Like, when I see a cover I like, not always, but most of the time, I will pick it up and read it. It could be terrible, the book should be awful, and the cover is just pretty, but a lot of time when I was younger, I used to go to the library, I would look at the books, and like I wouldn't pick something up like this. Now that I'm older, I guess it's because I've changed, and you can tell I've loved this book. I would read it over and over again. It's basically, it takes place in 11th century London, and this young boy loses his mother, and he meets this man called a barber surgeon, and they go on this adventure, and this little boy has the ability to touch people and know how they're going to die, basically. And you wouldn't look at this book and think that's what it's about, like The Physician. Sounds like something, like it's about a doctor. Like, yeah, obviously. But it's very good, and it's actually one of 3 different books. I haven't read the other 2 books because they're kind of like, they're a series. But the book's more about, like, this book is the first one, and then there's The Shaman, and I don't know the 3rd one. I haven't read them, but it's, like, a family of people that can do the same type of thing. So it's about his journey to become a physician, and he travels to the Middle East in a time when Christians weren't allowed in certain areas because of their religion. And he poses as a Jewish man, even though he's Christian, and learns to become the ways of the Middle Eastern medicine, which is at the time way better than 11th century London medicine. And I just think that if you like historical fiction and you're maybe in the medical field or you like that kind of stuff, I would definitely read this book. I would not pick something like this up normally, but the reason I read it was because I watched the movie and I liked the idea of it, and I know that the book and the movie are completely different in a lot of ways, and I like the book a lot better than the movie. But if you want to watch the movie, it's called The Physician. It's on Netflix. But this book's very good, and I actually want to read the next two sometime in the near future. Next book I'm going to talk about is Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix by J.K. Rowling. Now, I love the entire series, don't get me wrong. But my favorite book in the entire series is Order of the Phoenix, and that's because I feel that the emotions in the book are written so well. Harry is in a very bad place in this book. He's suffering with Voldemort trying to get into his head, basically, and he feels ignored by Dumbledore. And this and The Half-Blood Prince, actually, I enjoyed more, even though, don't get me wrong, Harry Potter is my life. Like, the entire series is my entire childhood. I could watch movies over and over again. But for some reason, I enjoyed this. And I liked when they went into the Ministry and all those cool parts with the time turners, and there's this part that's not in the movie. It has, like, floating brains. It's so cool. But Harry Potter and the Order of Phoenix is definitely one of my top favorite books, and I would read it over and over again. The next book I have is Game of Thrones. I actually have a way nicer edition of this, but I'm going to show you guys that another time. Maybe when I do a bookshelf tour, if you guys would like to see that, comment down below. And I'll see if I can film one of those for you soon in the near future, hopefully. But Game of Thrones by George R.R. Martin. Now, these books are so elaborately written to the point where you can tell that George just is so good at conveying his story, and the amount of time he must put into thinking about the worlds and the characters and like all the family trees. It just blows my mind. It's one of those books I am fascinated with, and the author, like, I think about, like, his head and, like, how, like, what he must think, like, what does he think about when he lays in bed at night? Like, him and J.R.R. Tolkien, like, have the most incredible imaginations I could ever imagine, and it amazes me that people come up with this kind of stuff. This book is... I love the entire series, but the first one is what really... I loved the way he described the characters, and just the entire world fascinates me. But Game of Thrones, as well as a TV show, as you all know, are my favorite. And I definitely recommend trying to read this book if you love the TV show. And if you haven't seen the TV show, perfect opportunity to read this book and experience it before you are taken in by the TV show, because after that it's hard, since he hasn't released Winds of Winter yet, and I know that the last book is A Dream of Spring, but I definitely recommend this book. The next book I have is Lord of the Rings by J.R.R. Tolkien. This is another one of those, I saved Game of Thrones and this one for last because I always kind of babble on about them, but this book, this is what got me into fantasy, and ever since I was little, I didn't read the books first. I will admit that. My parents took me to see Lord of the Rings when I was younger, and I don't know what it was about the movie, but that Lord of the Rings for me was on the same level as Harry Potter in terms of how much, like, I became obsessed with it, and the characters and the whole plot. Like, I don't know why, but when I went to see the first movie after I left, I was, like, obsessed with Frodo Baggins. I can quote the movie word for word now when I watch it. I almost annoy people now when I watch it with them, but I really, really enjoy Lord of the Rings, and I won't say anymore because I could talk about Lord of the Rings. I could spend a whole video talking about why I love Lord of the Rings. But if you haven't read this book and you haven't seen the movies, I'm one of those people that I'm like, oh my god, you haven't seen it? Like, it's just one of those ones. Like, you gotta watch it. It's so good. J.R.R. Tolkien's a mastermind. I wish that he was still alive. Honestly, he would be really old, but he's amazing. And I love the world, and I love that everything he's created it's completely fabricated. The languages, it's just like Game of Thrones. They made up their own languages, their own races of people. Like, interesting. Love it. definitely read Lord of the Rings. That's all I have for you guys today, my favorite books. If you'd like to see more videos about books, give this video a thumbs up and please subscribe to my channel. I hope that you enjoyed watching today, and if you like any of these books and you want to talk about them, comment down below. But I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.